it's just easier to let him say it because everyone's going to listen to him. They're not going to listen to little old me. Well, we start to rehearse that enough. It then impacts our inner compass, which is our nervous system. And then we start to question ourselves. Is this just me? Is this even a big deal? Yes, it's a big deal. Let me answer that for you. It is not just you, and it is a big deal. Welcome back to Unapologetic Rabble-Rousers. I'm Doc Shelley.
And I'm Carla Lewis. This week, we are going to be kind of taking off into a whole new storyline. And it has to do with truth telling, it has to do with untaming some of the habits and patterns and lessons that we've been taught along the way. And today, we're going to start it off with something that's talking about the self-silencing habit. And you all can, anyone hearing that can go, I don't even know where they're going with this, but I get it. But we're going to have this twist on it because the self-silencing habit has a reason. There's an underpinning for the whole thing. And that is to keep us digestible as opposed to necessarily being authentic. Get that? Being digestible, being able to be taken and handled and whatever, versus actually being able to go ahead and be authentic. So let's dig into it, Michelle.
Yeah. So this is all about those quiet ways that we mute ourselves. And sometimes we do it because we want to just keep ourselves safe. We want to be employable, and sometimes we want to be liked.
Sometimes
Sometimes it's self preservation.
when you think about how we have talked about it since the beginning of our, what has been for me a glorious time together in this running of the Unapologetic Rabble-Rousers podcast. But we've talked about how, in your quote, words change worlds.
That they do.
And when we think about the fact that we may be exercising these limits, we're self-limiting on the words that we're allowing to come out, that we are actually squelching some of the world moving that we can do. But we're basing it on some lessons that we've learned along the way that, to your point, lead us to mute ourselves, as opposed to saying, actually, here it is, unedited, unapologetically authentic.
Mm-hmm. And I think, like, if you think back many years ago, it all started pretty subtly. There was the little hush. Kids are not supposed to be heard and seen. Then there was that first meeting where you probably bit your tongue because you weren't sure if you should speak up or not. You nodded when you thought, oh, hell no, but you were like, yeah, yeah, that's fine. And I think it becomes almost second nature and habitual for some people to just stay silent versus throwing their voice in the pool. And sometimes I think it's because of a lack of courage that we don't want to do that. I also think a bigger influencer of that is the habitual nature that it is, because
I
we've
think
been doing it for so long.
it becomes, it's a reflex. It ends up being you're unconscious about the fact that all of these decisions that are going on and making a quick judgment about here's how I'm responding to what's just going on, or reacting. More often than not, it's probably reacting. Then we were thinking, okay, I could say something or not. If I was going to say something, what would I want to be saying? Well, what would happen if I was going to say that? This is all happening at computer processing speed, nanoseconds. And your body is also going through this response that says, okay, I'm facilitating how you're going to feel. And think about this because of the chemicals that all of that is
Mm-hmm.
triggering. And you know what? It's so much easier just to stay quiet than risk what could follow.
Well, yeah, it's almost like we're trained to protect our harmony versus honesty.
Wow. Now that is something to really chew on. Protecting the harmony. That is fascinating. So we want to keep the peace. And
Mhm.
keeping the peace by being quiet, that's almost a violation, isn't it? When there's something that needs to be said, that it's coming from your heart, not any other place, and yet feeling that the cost of taking that step may not be worth it.
I remember very early on in my career, I don't remember if I was working for him at the time or if we were peers at the time. And he said to me, it's not worth fighting City Hall.
Oh
Because
my
I was
gosh.
constantly like butting up against the powers that be. And he was like, it's just not worth it. And that kind of became a mantra for a while of it's not worth the energy, it's not worth the fight. And it becomes your inner motto. And to the point where then when you actually do want to speak up or you have things to say, you forget the sound of your own voice.
And the fact that being quiet because you don't want to have to fight City Hall becomes an okay decision. We get there so quickly, so easily. But you pointed out that from early days, our training was
Yeah.
be seen, not heard, don't do all of the things when we entered into the workforce. Some of us coming in where there were very few women who were in a position to actually have a voice to use.
Oh, and everything you says was judged. It was misunderstood, or you got excluded from the next conversation because they didn't want to hear from you.
Exactly. And so
So,
how
in order to avoid that judgment, that misunderstanding, and that exclusion, we just go, okay, you're
yeah,
right. You win. You're
yes.
right. Meanwhile, in your head, you're screaming, you effing moron. You're the dumbest person on the planet. Who ties your shoelaces? I can't tell you how many times I've asked myself, who ties your shoes?
I'm wondering if that's what's behind Skechers slip-in thing. But no, probably we don't even.
Don't
No,
be ditching my Skechers, man.
no, I love my Skechers too. Yeah. But with that early conditioning, this whole notion about you just go along with the flow. You said protect harmony, which is such an elegant way. And I'm saying just keep the peace. Yeah, you
Yeah, I
bring
mean,
in don't fight City Hall.
yeah.
There's a price to be paid.
And yeah, like I'm also thinking, like, how is our nervous system impacted by this? Because I'm thinking of people I know who stay silent when they really shouldn't because they do have valuable things to say. They over apologize before they speak. I'm really sorry. I know you're in the middle of a conversation. I have a little something I'd like to add. Would that be okay? Versus, I'd like to add something to the conversation and now I shall add it. Softening direct language. I see this all the time with those emojis. I love a good emoji. I love a well placed emoji. But if I'm being direct about something, I don't need to put a little smiley face in there. Hi.
Yet taking the edge off.
Or a disclaimer, asking for permission to share ideas. Like there's all these things I think as we do those things that impacts our nervous system.
Mhm. I can see about a half dozen situations, just as you said that, where we are that over explaining piece or the let me make room for the fact that I'm about to come out with something that might not be actually along the party line. And so
Right.
all of this stuff we do to go ahead and diminish the impact we actually can have by saying, look, I know what I'm about to say is going to be this and that and the other thing. And so I just want to acknowledge that, but, and then come out with it versus being able to say, my opinion, which is different than what I've heard, goes along these lines.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even need to say which is different than what I've heard because you're going to be able to pick up on that if you've been paying any freaking attention to the
That's
conversation.
that's your nervous system.
Mm.
That extra phrase is your nervous system going, I got to prepare them that this is going to sound a little bit different because I don't want to get attacked. It is a protection mechanism. And I think that the longer, think about how many times you've let somebody take credit for something that you did because it just wasn't worth the argument. You didn't want to make that person look bad in the room or whatever, or you just
Hmm.
defer to others. You know the answer, but you also know they're not going to listen to you. So you let Joe Bob Dingleberry have the say
I hate,
because
and Joe Bob Dingleberry was it's in so many. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
we all have them. Um,
Yeah.
but it's just easier to let him say it because everyone's going to listen to him. They're not going to listen to little old me. Well, we start to rehearse that enough, it then impacts our inner compass, which is our nervous system. And then we start to question ourselves. Is this just me? Is this even a big deal? Yes, it's a big deal. Let me answer that for you. It is not just you, and it is a big deal. A
You
thousand
raised
percent.
you raised a dilemma, a question I want to just put out there. So part
Yes.
of it is the nervous system is introducing these pauses that are filled with words that are dismissive. So I
Hmm.
come along and say, I know it's different, but, or I know it's different. And either way, I'm saying, get ready. So there's the nervous system that's saying you're stepping into dangerous territory. Somehow we're picking up on that.
Hmm.
But then the learned behavior and the phrasing and the timing and even the choice of whether or not to speak up comes with conditioning.
Hmm.
So when it comes time and there needs to be some balance struck between what nature tells me and my brain is telling me I need to do to keep safe, what my conditioning is telling me is an appropriate way for me to exercise that protecting myself and managing my own safety. What is it that needs to happen so that I can address this whole self-silencing thing, which has grounds in conditioning and in primal instinct?
Hmm.
What are the things? I mean, what is it that how to get past the judgments that I decide what makes me digestible in terms of my input to a conversation and what's going to be okay about authentic? I don't know, it becomes a jumble.
It does. And I also would say that this is not about inventing a new voice. It's really about connecting to what you know, what you once knew, and giving that space and time again. There was a point in your life where you knew your voice was valuable. Maybe it was, I remember, this is such a ridiculous example, but I think it'll be clear. Years ago, I have a friend who's very, very shy, very introverted, barely speaks up. And we were standing in the kitchen, and me and another person were very loudly arguing about something. And she was like, "You guys, I think the stove is on fire." And we just keep talking and talking and talking. She's like, "You guys, I think the stove is on fire." And we're like, "Shut." We didn't hear what she was saying. We're like, "Be quiet." And we're like yelling at each other. And finally she just goes, "The stove is on fire." And we're all like, "What?" And sure enough, there's flames coming out of the stove. But like in that moment, she's so uncertain of her voice that she cannot yell out, "The stove is on fire." Like we literally were in physical danger. But she was so afraid to speak up. She was so uncomfortable in that moment because we were being loud. I don't even know what we were arguing about, but obviously we got the fire all handled and it was fine. But I've never forgotten that moment
Mm.
of how literally something is literally on fire.
You are
And
in serious
she
danger.
and she still cannot use her voice. She found her voice in that moment and she was able to speak. So our voices do not vanish, even though we may not have used them in a really long time
Mm.
and how we would prefer. So it's about reconnect. For me, I think it's about reconnecting to what I know is true. I always come at things. What is my intent in speaking up? What is my intent in bringing forth the idea, the whatever it is? Because I see people do things with such malintent sometimes.
Hmm.
That's when I actually, that is when I go quiet, is when I see things with malintent because I know I can't combat it in certain places, in certain times. So that's when I'm like, preserve your energy, preserve your peace, protect the harmony. I'm out.
Yeah, I that helps clarify those situations where that self-silencing is it's it's not grounded in fear, it's not grounded in lack of respect for self, it's actually grounded in respect for yourself and the notion that okay, it's not about you can't fight City Hall, but it is about choosing where you are going to invest your precious energy.
Yeah.
It's not about an identity thing. It's about the worthiness of that situation to be able to say, okay, at this point, self silencing is actually denying myself versus self silencing is just, I'm acknowledging that there's no value really to be added, but it's not a judgment of me. It's a
Right.
judgment of the circumstances and what I can bring to them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you need to evaluate, are you truly staying silent for self-preservation, and is it a healthy kind of self-preservation where you're just going to be beating your head against the wall and it's going to start to hurt? Or are you being silent because it's what you're used to
Mm.
and you don't want to make other people uncomfortable by speaking up? It's not about their comfort. So your voice is valuable always. And if you are that person that's sitting back and not really using your voice and then getting mad at yourself because you didn't speak up, think about, I would say, start with, I'll call it a micro bravery, where you speak one sentence sooner than your comfort allows.
Mm.
You go one sentence louder than what your habit has been. You don't have to jump in both feet into the deep end of the pool. Dip your toe in, but get familiar with how your voice sounds. Because a lot of women in particular have forgotten what their voice sounds like.
And by taking that micro bravery step, you're proving a couple of things. One, that your voice does matter. You're not going, and nothing bad is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And as we practice more using our voice, the one that we were given and the one that has so much to offer, but has been squelched mostly by self,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? Just being until we pop that cork, we, we can't know
Yeah.
the beauty of what's been bottled up. So
Yeah. And I think as you're saying that, you know me, journal prompt here.
I was waiting for it.
So we talked a little bit about that sanctity of peace that protect the harmony. But I think there's also value in thinking through, is it temporary peace or is it legit? This just isn't worth my time and effort, a boundary for yourself. And those are two very different things. If you're trading your truth for temporary peace and you're sitting in silence, what is that costing you over time? I'm going to venture to go out on a limb and say it's impacting relationships. It's impacting your self-confidence. It's impacting how, where, and when you use your voice because you're probably not using it. And you're probably letting people walk all over you in a lot of different areas of your life. So we'd spend some time thinking about that and reflecting on that.
The convenience of being quiet is comfortable and it's costly.
Exactly. Exactly. And just remember, your voice isn't gone. It didn't vanish. It didn't disappear. You just haven't used it in a while. It's kind of like riding a bike. Bring it back out. Give it a good old ride.
I so love that. Oh gosh, and with that, I'm Carla Lewis.
I'm Doc Shelley. We'll see you next time.
Give it a ride.
Give it a ride. So we'd spend some time thinking about that and reflecting on that.
The convenience of being quiet. It's comfortable and it's costly.
Exactly. And just remember, your voice isn't gone. It didn't vanish. It didn't disappear. You just haven't used it in a while. It's kind of riding a bike. Bring it back out. Give it a good old ride.
Give it a ride.
Give it a ride.